Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin Henry, and my partner in crime in life is Pommy Henry. I have a rare disease known as spinal cerebellar ataxia, which is a neuromuscular disease. This has left me mobility challenges as well as with a speech impediment and noise-induced anxiety.
Living with these disabilities for over 20 years, we have developed helpful hints and life lessons that we would like to share with you that has made our life easier and possible in some cases. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to educate ourselves and you about other disabilities and issues, and also talk about things we find interesting and frequently encounter when we're out and about. Welcome to When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Pommy.
And I'm Kevin.
And this is our 4th episode. We've learned a lot so far, haven't we?
We sure have.
So keep sending in those likes and any suggestions of episodes in the near future. This episode is a little different than what we've been doing. Well, not really. It came about a little differently. We happened to be going we went to the Barbie movie. And if you've been to the Barbie movie, you'll know that they brought back some of the disabled characters that they had in the past that didn't even know some of them existed.
They were actually some of their least popular models.
That were discontinued, yeah.
Do you recall from your childhood, Barbie had lots of jobs. They went out of their way to try different cultural things.
To be inclusive to all.
And some just didn't sell well.
Right, yeah. But that brought us to the subject of how often now we're seeing that they're including handicapped people in the movies, in the TV shows. It's a lot more. If I think back to when I was a kid, I'm not sure I ever saw anyone other than maybe that guy that was in the wheelchair that was a lawyer. What was that guy? Ironside, yeah. So that was about the only person I can remember growing up that, the handicapped society was included in that type of stuff.
I remember one other one, but you have to be a Trekkie. Captain Pike was in a futuristic wheelchair.
Yeah. Well, more than that, because I think half of his body was missing, right?
It's a weird thing. He was like paralyzed and non-responsive, but he could think.
Like they transferred his brain, I think, is what.
I don't recall exactly, but I knew he had brain activity. I think it served as a platform to speak what he was thinking.
Yeah. Now that you've said that, I remember that. My dad was a huge Trekkie fan. And as a kid, that was one of the things we sat down and watched together was Star Trek. So anyways, getting on to our episode. It's, don't even know how to name that. I guess just how handicapped and disabled people have been represented throughout history and where we're at, basically.
Currently, I think ChatGPT in a future episode asks a question about what percentage of the U.S. population is disabled and how are they broken down by categories. And ChatGPT, which I used exclusively for the research on this episode, they went with the 25% figure. I've been hearing that a lot lately, but I think that includes everybody that injured their arm or leg on the job, or what you call or term a temporary disability.
And there's other disabilities that you wouldn't necessarily think is a disability, but it does. The whole term is that you can't do your normal type of activity because of it.
Again, we're not going to shy away from that discussion, but we do cover it in the next episode.
Right.
So,
right, exactly.
We're not going to really go in depth into that right now.
So I do have a statistic about less than 5% of the disability roles on TV are played by disability actors, while in 2015 it was 2.7% of all the speaking characters in films was depicted with a disability. So that's basically what we're talking about now. And so we have to kind of acknowledge that most everybody has biases. You may not realize you have, but everybody does. And specifically for the handicapped, discrimination for the handicapped is very high and unrecognized, I think, too.
Yeah, presently the word for it is ableism.
Right, that was a new one for me. I'd never heard that before.
I've read it a lot, but I didn't know for sure it was a thing. I don't do a whole lot of social media, but it's coming up in news articles every now and then. It's coming up a lot on social media.
So kind of like what we talked about before, handicapped people face discrimination in being employed, having barriers to being hired, promoted, or reasonable accommodations. Kevin, you can talk to that.
Yeah, there is a term that is used in insurance. It's unemployable. And what that means is, for example, with me, because of the disease I have, if I were to go into a place of work and hurt myself, the employer is going to have to pay an increase in liability on his property. And if they offer health benefits through employment, I am going to affect the group rate that they've been offered through insurance companies. So basically, they're going to have to pay an increased premium. And if it's, a large company with a lot of employees, that might be a drop in the bucket. If it's a smaller employer with fewer employees, it might be a bigger percentage of the group. But the point is that the insurance company turns this as unemployable because basically employers don't want to give you a job. And pre-COVID, there were a lot of on-site type jobs, and telecommuting was something that was done by people that had been with that company for a while. But since COVID, I think a lot more people are allowed to telecommute, work off-site, if you will. And that sort of work, I think, wouldn't affect their insurance as much for people like me.
And we just talked about public accommodation, not being able to actually go to wherever it is that you're hired or just wherever you wanted to go. We ran into that several times.
We had a conversation off air a while ago about when the Twin Towers, the airplanes hit the Twin Towers, and disabled people hit of course, don't have the option of using the stairs, even though everybody tells you don't use the elevators in case of emergency. It's like, well, that's the only way I can go up or down. And I think Pommy was saying, yeah, people are carrying handicapped people down the stairs to evacuate.
Yeah, there was a lot of firefighters were killed because of that specifically. They were, trying to get people that were not able to, for some reason, get down the stairs. So I did hear that was a major issue when that was all happening. And then also state and local government services, they might, where they may be denied equal access to the program's benefits and opportunities.
For example, the Medicaid issue is very weighing on somebody who's permanently disabled mind, because under Medicaid, you have to make below a certain amount of money. I fall into the category of I make too much money, so I don't qualify for Medicaid. But you have to be careful not to earn more than Medicaid allows. Medicare gives you I think a 6-month window to try out employment, see that it's going to work out, and see it's going to make your bills. And I think everybody, all the agencies that give you benefits need to do this. Otherwise, you're just going on a hope and a prayer and saying, cancel my benefits and I'll make enough doing this job. For all you know, you won't have that job very long.
Which has caused the additional discrimination because of poverty. A lot of handicapped people are in the poverty levels. And again, that itself leads into many, many, many problems. Lack of education, lack of health care, and violence and abuse. You're more vulnerable to physical and emotional and financial harm by predators who are trying to exploit someone's disability.
And when Pommy brings up mental abuse, it's not always the bad guy accosting you on the street. It's people constantly doubting whether you're faking it or whatever for your free benefits. I give up my benefits in a heartbeat to not be disabled.
And I think a lot of people would do that. True disabled people would do that. I think that's a common trade-off.
Yeah, also it's very hard because there are a lot of bad actors out there who want to take advantage of a short-term disability like workers' compensation or a long-term disability like Social Security disability payments. And they bring out spotlights on everybody involved in the disability program.
Right. These forms of discrimination violate the human rights of the handicapped person and prevent them from fully participating in society. And so getting back to where we started on this, we noticed in the movies that there was more and more people that were being represented as either they were, in the past, I think they had been played by abled actors. And we noticed because it was kind of brought to the surface with the Barbie thing, that nowadays we're seeing more and more people with disabilities playing people in shows, movies that are physically disabled and still able to do the job that they were asked to do.
Which is a good thing. It's also a bad thing if you're an actor, because you've heard of actors being typecast, and unless there is a specific role that needs an actor with a disability, which may or may not be strictly defined by his diagnosis, he's not going to have the choice of roles he had before. Take, for example, Michael J. Fox with Parkinson's. You used to see him quite a bit. You don't see him as much now, but you do see him playing somebody with Parkinson's.
And I think that's just because it's a progressive disease, and at a certain point, you're just not able to do the job. I think I just watched his Netflix, or was it Apple? I can't remember. He has a special on there, and I watched it. And, he's progressive, just like Kevin. Kevin's is progressive. And 10 years ago, Kevin could do a lot more than he's able to do now. So, in 10 years, he'll do less than he's able to do at this time. So I think it's just progressive. But I think the fact that it's more open to allowing actors with disabilities to represent the true aspect of the battles that they are facing on an day-to-day basis is a lot more actively portraying a disabled person's life.
Now, don't get me wrong, some actors do it quite well, but that is a job to do it quite well. In the past, the only disabled people I would see were actually actors who were fully capable playing somebody who had a temporary disability.
Right.
Which I don't have a problem with, because that's how temporary disabilities work. But for somebody to be permanently mobility challenged, you really kind of are doing your viewers a disservice by hiring a actor who is fully capable and not limited by disability to play that role. Because disabled people have a tendency to, uncover the flaw in the plan. Okay, this is supposed to be disabled, but I have to go up steps, which is not handicapped accessible. So, that sort of thing comes to light when you're hiring a true mobility challenge person to play that role.
Well, they're actually representing a whole character and not just the part that's disabled either, because there's a lot of other things that people bring to a role than just being disabled. I watched a bunch of YouTube episodes, I guess, while we were preparing for this, and there was a real question of whether they were questioning whether plots of that specifically had disability in it were accurately typically a movie will have represent a disabled person and they're on a journey to get somewhere, or they're the hero of the story, or the challenges that they are able to surpass because of this ability. There was a real, and I can't say for myself because I'm not disabled, but it didn't accurately portray a lot of the life of a handicapped person. Yes, there is challenges and you're looking for the bright light at the end. And a lot of times there is no bright light at the end. You just learn to live with what disability you have. And that is it's just life. It's next super character, or, you're not a Superman at the end, or so there was a lot of controversy whether even when we have stories like this, if they truly represent the disabled life.
A good example of that is, I believe, Dr. Strange. When he had a car accident, he was no longer able to use his hands properly. And he was a neurosurgeon, so he just kind of went off the deep end and said, I can't make a living doing what I'm used to doing. Instead of coping with it and doing something else, He went on a pilgrimage, basically learned a lot of mystical things that allowed him to use his hands normally.
Right. That was one of the criticisms, is that magic was, and you were thought to believe that these handicapped people were able to achieve these things, even in real life, not just, superhero, but because it was magical or it has superpowers, or, they always say that blind people have their other senses become enlightened and stuff like that. And that's really not the case. It's the fact that they learn to live with their disability, and other things come to light.
Yeah, there are a lot of disabilities out there that are quote unquote uncurable right now as of 2023. So the hardest part as a disabled person is facing up to the fact that you're not going to get better and you have to make do with what you got.
And make your life when life gives you lemons, you just make what you can of it and you enjoy your life. Everybody gets one life. And if you're miserable throughout the entire part of it, it probably wasn't a very happy life.
To continue on with that metaphor, in my case, life gave me lemons on a made a really sloppy lemonade.
But it's a joy to drink.
According to Pommy, it is. But
I'm sure your daughter thinks so too. But you're not fighting it like you were, in the very beginning. It takes some time to adjust to it.
Yeah, it takes time to wrap your head around it.
And depression is always part of it, I think.
It is.
But anyways, getting back to it. So there was a lot of stars with disabilities that after we took note of that, they came to mind, like Marlene Matlin. She's deaf, and she starred in many movies as The Children of the Lesser God, West Wing, and The Switched. And she's currently, I think, playing Switched at Birth. Kevin really was big into Breaking Bad, and the actor that played the son has cerebral palsy, and he R.J. Mitty. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, that's him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Played Walter White's son with cerebral palsy, and he actually had cerebral palsy.
And then there was Chris Berkey, is an actor who has Down syndrome. He plays Corky in the TV show Life Goes On, and he also has appeared on ER and Touched by Angels and The Commish. Of course, probably the most famous is Christopher Reeve, who became a quadriplegic after a horse riding accident. And he had previously played Superman in 4 of the movies, and was, I don't know that he ever, I think he starred in a show about himself, a special or something like that.
A documentary.
About his life afterwards. Unfortunately, he succumbed of his injuries. And then there's other actors that, and then thinking of a different way, and I guess I never thought of it this way. Howie Mandel has a attention deficit disorder, along with ADHD and obsessive compulsive disorder, and he's the host of the Deal or No Deal and a judge of America's Got Talent. Now that's you don't necessarily think of that as a disability. It's an unseen disability, I guess, and those are probably the most popular, or not popular, but most largest amount that would represent the disabled people.
I think we go on to break down in future episode which network has more disabled actors than others, and how that number has been rising for several years.
Yeah, and it says NBC leads the broadcasting network in terms of representing people with disabilities, with 18 characters, representing 12% of the network's series regulars, and there are some movies and TV shows that casted disabled actors are actual disabled characters, such as Coda, Call the Midwife, Feel the Beat, and Game of Thrones 3.
I think we should also note that, as I said before, we use ChatGPT to augment our search in this episode, and ChatGPT doesn't interact with you if you use hate speech, and it informed me that being labeled as handicapped was considered hate speech.
Never heard that before.
I hadn't either. So disabled is what ChatGPT recommended. We've been going out of our way to use the word disabled in this podcast in case that is the case. But if there is a issue about if handicap is a derogatory word or a hateful word, certainly email us and let us know that, because we just didn't think anything about it. We park in handicapped spaces. We apply for handicap permits. Hotels ask for handicap rooms. It just never occurred to me that word is offensive. So if you feel that is the case, give me some feedback and let
we'd like to see what percentage actually have heard this.
Yeah, it was totally new to me.
We're not big media people, so we're not aware of that. So if we offended anybody, we would like to apologize at this point. I think that does it for us today.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the Barbie models that were
that's a good
not
idea.
big sellers, but they had mentioned in the movie. During the movie, I didn't really think that much of it. I thought they just, they had some story made up of Barbie to take that role. But as it turns out, during the credits, they actually would show the products and why they were, and some of them were actually pretty common sense, but why they were less popular than other dolls. But handicap Barbie was a thing. It just didn't sell as well as other Barbies did, so
took it off the market. But there was also a pregnant Barbie, which that would be common sense, I think. But
that was common sense because the handicap Barbie they showed in the credits came with
lots of accessories.
5 kids. You would Velcro onto her dress.
No, that was another character. That wasn't the handicapped one. That was the babysitting Barbie, I think.
But they had a theme in the movie that Barbies that got played with too much got broken either in their mind or their body. So
yeah, that was a strange situation. What was
that was not a discontinued model. They didn't have that for real.
But I did see that they are now. It is now a Barbie that you can get.
Yeah, it is now because I imagine it does quite well in sales.
Yeah, anything unusual these days does well.
Yeah. They might actually bring back some of the lesser models because they were mentioned in the movie.
Because of the popularity was increased during the movie.
The movie was actually the most popular thus far this year.
Yeah, that was the top-selling movie. I went twice. Got some of my money.
It broke all the box office records, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think it was not a good year for movies, though, because of the striking of the writers and the striking of the Actors Guild. So I think some of that might have had...
A lot of movies and TV shows are like halfway done and they're waiting for the strike to end resolve itself.
But now they're in league with the Actors Guild. That is now it's on strike. So
basically, they're waiting for that Hollywood strike to be resolved so they can finish, unfinished parts of movies or TV shows.
I think it's ironic that typically, and you'll be able to tell me more, I see this through your life, that you increased the amount of television that you watch, movies that you watch because of your handicap, because of your disability. And I find it ironic that they're just getting it, that, they should represent that part of the
population.
Yeah, population, yeah. I think that's ironic that they're just now getting it. And if you're talking 25%, even if that's a low number of the disability people that are disabled in America or in the world, that was America, right?
Yes.
Yeah. If you just consider they're missing a large section of possible eyes on their movies or TV shows or whatever.
Oh, I'm sure there are people that are way more into this sort of thing and will actively seek out programs that have disabled people or shy away from programs where
they're not
fully capable actor is playing a disabled role. But that's, based on the time we live in. I hear a lot more of that now.
It seems like in the last century, maybe, we have a lot more opinions.
Well, the famous quote was, before we had the internet, people would say, yeah, a certain population of our, percentage of our population is going to be ignorant of some kind of issues because they just are not that well educated. Then along came the internet with all the information available.
Everybody wants to educate you.
And the meme now is like, no, that wasn't it. It's kind of a joke because once you unleash everybody to start doing their own research, a trend I'm seeing is people that label science as pseudoscience and vice versa. They're doing their own research and listening to people who promote pseudoscience because it goes along with part of their research. They're going with those.
What they want the consequence to be.
Exactly. And I hope we don't fall into those categories in this. But as I said, I'm going to try to use the AI tools to do the research that we talk about. And particularly GPT has been known to demonstrate some biases based on the information that was put into the programming of that.
Well, it can only spit out what you gave it.
Exactly. The term that we're used to using in computer science is garbage in, garbage out. If the process going into a program is flawed, the conclusions of the program are going to be flawed or could be flawed if they get into the flawed areas of the program.
Yep. Sounds good. All right, let's end the program here.
Okay, one thing we should mention is how to get a hold of us. You can go to our website at www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net, and all the information on how you can get a hold of us is there. We're going to start having a social media presence in the future. That about does it. We'll see you next episode.
Bye now. We are always looking to improve the podcast, so if you want to hear a specific topic, have a differing opinion, want to add something to the conversation, drop us an email. Our contact information is listed on our website. It's www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. We have recently added a companion YouTube channel called Making the Lemonade. If you enjoy the podcast, continue your enjoyment by joining us on YouTube.